friends. Good morning to you. Let me talk to you now about a very important document of our country, namely the Constitution of India. Constitution is the fundamental law of a country, and our Constitution is the fundamental law of our country. It regulates the working of the government. It defines the nature of political life of the government. Constitution describes the organs, powers and functions of the government. It specifies the rights and duties of the citizens, and any law that is not in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution, it becomes invalid. So thereby it prevents the government from deviating the path laid down in the Constitution, and it provides the opportunities to all citizens of India to participate in the political activities. It upholds that all citizens are equal before law, and therefore the Constitution of India is very important. The knowledge about the Constitution of India is very important for all the citizens of the country, and it becomes necessary at some stage or the other, at some given point of time or the other. And this constitution, it was framed by a constituent assembly which had 299 elected members, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he was elected the chairman of its first meeting held in 1946. And now let us see what are the objectives of this constituent assembly. The objective of this Constituent Assembly was to declare India as a democratic republic and to prepare a constitution for the country. And it formed several committees to speed up the work, and Dr. Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, was made the president of the Constitution Drafting Committee. And it took 3 years to finalize the constitution, and it was finally adopted on 26th January 1950. The first general elections were held in 1951-52, and the first elected body, the parliament, it came to existence in 1952. So let us see some of the important points leading to the formation of this constitution and also the salient features of the constitution. See, our constitution, it was not typed or printed. Both the versions of the constitution, the Hindi and English, they were handwritten, and it is the lengthiest handwritten constitution of any sovereign country in the world. And in its current form, today it has a preamble, 22 parts, 448 articles, 12 schedules, 5 appendices, and 104 amendments. The original Constitution of India was handwritten by Prem Bahari Noroin in a flowing italic style with beautiful calligraphy. And each page of this constitution, it was the handwritten constitution. Each page was decorated by the artists from the Shantiniketan. People included people like Ram Manohar Sinha and Nandalal Bose. And when the draft was prepared and put up for debate and discussion, more than 2,000 amendments were suggested by the members, and these were all discussed, debated, and they were incorporated, and it was finalized. And the Constituent Assembly, it sat for a total of 11 sessions. And the 11th session, the final session, it was held between 14th and 26th November 1949. And on this last day, that is 26th November 1949, the final draft of the constitution was ready. And on 24th January 1950, not 26th but 24th January 1950, 284 members of this Constituent Assembly, they signed the Constitution, Indian Constitution. the draft that was finalized at the Constitution Hall. And now that Constitution Hall is known as the Central Hall of Parliament in New Delhi. So passed by the Constituent Assembly on 26th November 1949, it came into effect on 26th January 1950, and this date 26th January 1950, it was chosen specially to commemorate the declaration of Purna Swaraj, that is complete independence of 1930. And a representation of the lion capital of Ashoka, it was initially adopted as the emblem of India in December 1947. And the current version of the national emblem, it was officially adopted on 26th January 1950, the day India became a republic. The Indian Constitution, it has borrowed some good provisions from the constitutions of various other countries. The Indian Constitution was mostly embodied on a series of statutes enacted by the British Parliament. This is very important. And the ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, all this comes from the French Constitution. So these words, they appear in the preamble to the Constitution of India, and many other nations have also adopted the French slogan of liberty, equality, and fraternity as an ideal. So the concept of the 5-year plans in the Indian Constitution, it was adopted or it was inspired by the Constitution of the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, and the laws governing our Supreme Court, and also the concept of procedure established by law, what we call. So these were all inspired by the Constitution of Japan. The concept of suspension of fundamental rights during the emergency rule, it was taken from the Constitution of Germany. And the preamble of the Indian Constitution was also inspired by the US Constitution's preamble, because both the preambles begin with the slogan, "We the people." So the Government of India Act 1935, it also plays a very important role in the framing of this constitution. So this Government of India Act 1935 on constitutional reforms originally passed in August 1935 by the British Parliament for implementing the ideal of responsible government in India. So that was the main source of inspiration for framing our constitution. Now let us see what are the salient features of the constitution. It is a written, lengthiest constitution, and the Indian Constitution is the world's lengthiest for a sovereign nation. At the time of its enactment, it had 395 articles, 22 parts, 8 schedules. But today, our Constitution, it has 448 articles, 25 parts and 12 schedules. And there are 104 amendments. So 104 times it has been amended. Our Constitution has a preamble. It narrates the ideals and the inspirations of the Indian people, the justice, liberty, equality, individual dignity, fraternity, and their national unity. So these are the ideals stated in the preamble. And the aim of the Constitution is to establish a welfare state. It also upholds the social and economic justice and the individual liberty. Our Constitution also assures equal opportunities and protection to all the citizens. India is a republic, people themselves rule. Republic means people themselves rule. So our Constitution, it upholds a form of government which is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Hence, it is a democratic republic. There are fundamental rights given to the individuals, By our constitution, there were initially 7 fundamental rights, and the right of property has been abolished, and today there are 6 fundamental rights. They are number one, the right to equality. So that is irrespective of your religion, race, caste, creed, place of birth, all are equal before law. With regard to the access to the public places, the government service, places of worship, untouchability, etc. And number two, the right to particular freedom, that is freedom to speech and expression. Similarly, freedom to assemble peacefully, freedom to form the association, freedom to move freely in any part of India, freedom to reside and settle in any part of the country, freedom to practice any profession, carry on any trade or business, and right against exploitation also. That is, prevent exploitation of women, children, and the weaker group against, and especially the woman against dowry, and also the bonded labor, child labor, etc. So all this has been granted to us through several laws. And right to freedom of religion. So right to propagate and practice the individual's religion subject to the restrictions imposed by the state in the interests of public order, morality, and health. And no conversion of religion is possible, by force is possible in India. And there are cultural and the educational rights. So this protects the interests of religions and linguistic minorities to protect their language or script or culture through their educational institutions, subject to certain limitations and the restrictions in the interest of the country or say the public at large. And there is also right to constitutional remedies. So whenever our rights are violated, citizens they may appeal to the court of law for their protection, and the Indian Parliament may even curtail or suspend our fundamental rights under certain extraordinary circumstances, that is during emergency period. And there are also fundamental duties stated in detail in the Constitution. The fundamental duties and fundamental rights, they are like two faces of the same coin. They are the obligations, the moral obligations of the citizens towards the country, included in the Constitution in the year 1977. So they are to respect the Constitution, the national flag, the national anthem, to follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom, to protect the integrity of India, to defend the motherland when called upon to do so, to promote the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all people of India, to preserve our rich heritage, to protect and improve the natural environment, to develop the scientific temper and the spirit of inquiry, to safeguard the public property, to survive and to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and the collective activities. So these are the fundamental duties granted to us. And there are also what are called as the directive principles of state policy. So these are the directions to the state which cannot be appealed to the court of law when these are not implemented. They are one, the social justice to the weaker section of the society. So providing adequate means of livelihood, preventing the educational and economical exploitation, etc. And coming to women and children, it includes equal pay for equal work, protection to children against the exploitation, maternity relief to the working woman, etc. And then there are also other principles like the labor welfare pertaining to the help to the needy, the uniform civil code prohibition, and also the prevention of the slaughter of cattle, development of agriculture, protection of environment, the protection and maintenance of the places of historic interest, promotion of international peace and amity, etc. So this is all about the salient features of the constitution, and now let us see what are the different organs of the Indian parliamentary democracy. So they are number one, the legislature, the executive, and judiciary. So these are the three organs of our government, or say the three organs of our democracy. So coming to legislature, parliament, it represents the legislature which has got two houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. And coming to the Lok Sabha, the maximum number of seats that are approved now is 552. That is 530 members are to be elected. So this is the position as of the 17th, as at the beginning of the 17th Lok Sabha. So 552, 530 are to be elected by the states, and 20 are to be elected from the union territories, and 2 are to be nominated by the president. And this Lok Sabha is not a permanent body, and it is elected for a term of 5 years, and it may be even dissolved even before this term of 5 years. And to become a member of the Lok Sabha, one should be an Indian citizen, not less than 25 years of age, and he or she should not hold any office of profit, should not be an insolvent or of unsound mind, should not have been imprisoned, and the speaker is the presiding officer. He decides, he maintains the decorum and dignity of the house, and he decides about the matters to be discussed or to be taken up for discussion in the Lok Sabha. And coming to Rajya Sabha, the maximum number of seats, approved seats, is 250, and it is not, they are not elected directly by the citizens. State assemblies, they elect 238, and 12 are nominated by the president. The term is 6 years here, and this is a permanent body unlike Lok Sabha. And to become a member, one should be Indian citizen, not less than 30 years of age. And again, same qualifications, that he should not be of unsound mind or insolvent, a criminal, should not have been imprisoned, etc. And one third of its members, they retire on the expiration of every second year. And vice president is the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And both these houses, both Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, they should meet. They have to meet at least twice a year. And the maximum strength, as I said, is 552 members. I have already explained this to you. And at present, the strength of the House is 545. So that is 543 are elected and 2 are nominated. So the present Lok Sabha is the 17th Lok Sabha. This was formed by the members elected in the 2019, year 2019. So elections were held in different phases in 2019, from 11th April 2019 to 19th May 2019. And because the counting started officially on the morning of 23rd May 2019, results were declared on the same day, and BJP emerged as the largest party in the Lok Sabha and formed the government, and Narendra Modi was sworn in as the Prime Minister on 30th May 2019 in a function held at Rashtrapati Bhavan. And coming to the party-wise distribution of the seats declared, the results declared on 23rd May 2019, BJP plus its friendly parties, the alliance, NDA, so both together it is 303 plus 50, 353. Speaker Om Birla of BJP, the Secretary General then was Snehalata Srivatsa, and the leader of the House is Narendra Modi, but leader of the opposition, none, as no opposition party received the required 10% membership of the total members of the House. So the single largest opposition party in the Lok Sabha is the Indian National Congress with 52 seats. That is 2 seats below the required number of 54 to be recognized as the official opposition party. And of course, Coming to some of the major parties and their number, BJP on its own it won 303 and its other alliance, so about 50. Indian National Congress 52 seats, DMK 24, YSR Congress Party 22, and the All India Trinamool Congress TMC, I think it also had 22 seats, and the Shiv Sena, of course, it's a friendly party with BJP. It had 18 seats. It has 18. JDU 15, BJD 12, and this Bahujan Samajwadi Party BSP about 10, and rest of the parties all less than 10. Maybe 1 seat, 2 seats, 3 seats, like that. Nothing more than 10. So let us now see the powers and functions of the parliament. The parliament has got the legislative powers, financial powers, the administrative powers, constitutional powers, and also other powers. So coming to the legislative powers, it has powers to make laws, amend the laws, and revoke the laws. And financial powers, finance bills have to be first presented to the Lok Sabha, then sent to Rajya Sabha, and the president. So union government, it cannot either collect the taxes or spend money. Not even a single rupee can be spent by the executive of the government without the approval of the parliament. So it has to first approve the budget. Then the administrative powers of the parliament, questions of the members of the parliament, it should be answered by the respective ministers. And they can point out, the members can point out the lapses and the misuse of powers. And the parliament has also got the constitutional powers, that it has the powers to amend the constitution, and MPs along with MLAs, they also elect the president of India, and the MPs, they elect the vice president. These are the other powers. Now let us see the executive. So that's about the legislature. Coming to executive, the union executive, it has the president, the prime minister, and the council of ministers. President, he appoints the leader of the majority party as the prime minister. The ministers again are appointed by the president based on the prime minister's recommendations. The governors, the CNDG, the judges of High Court and Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, the Chief Election Commissioner, etc., are all appointed by the president, but all based on the advice of the cabinet. And even the money bill, it can be introduced in Lok Sabha only after obtaining the president's consent. So president has got powers to declare the national emergency on the advice of the cabinet. And vice president, he is elected by the MPs of both the houses of parliament, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. And he must be more than 35 years of age and citizen of India. The term of office is only 5 years, and he is the chairman of Rajya Sabha. And coming to the functions of the cabinet, so cabinet, I mean, an important part of the executive, ensuring smooth functioning of the administration, framing policies of the government, preparing the union budget, drafting the bills to be introduced in the parliament for the approval, formulating the foreign policy of the country, and suggesting the amendments to be taken up in the parliament for amending the constitution. And the cabinet meetings, they are held at least once a week. Prime Minister presides over it, and its proceedings are kept confidential. Prime Minister, he is the head of the Council of Ministers, and he plays a major role in democratic system. He is the head of the government. He appoints the ministers. He allocates them the departments, and he can also reshuffle the portfolios. He can remove the minister from the cabinet. So with this recommendation, the ministers are even removed by the president based on the recommendations of the prime minister. And coming to judiciary now, let's say the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is the highest court at national level, and there are currently 32 judges, including the Chief Justice of India. And the maximum possible strength, it is 34 as of date, because this number also keeps changing. And The judges and the Chief Justice, they are appointed by the President. The function of this Supreme Court is to resolve resolve the disputes between the Union and the states and also between the states, to issue the writs to safeguard the fundamental rights, interpretation of the provisions of the Constitution, giving advice to the President of India, are all the important functions of the Supreme Court. Qualification of the judge should be a citizen of India and should have been, has been a High Court judge for at least 5 years, or has been an advocate of the High Court for at least 10 years, or he is a distinguished jurist. Age of retirement of Supreme Court judge is 65 years, and after his retirement, because he cannot practice as an advocate in any court. And coming to the High Court, highest court of law in the state, it consists of the Chief Justice and other judges. India, currently it has 25 High Courts. This Goa, Arunachal, Mizoram, and the Nagaland states do not have their own, high courts or high courts in their own states. Allahabad High Court is the biggest high court in India. And a High Court judge, he must be a citizen of India, must have served the judiciary for at least 10 years. President appoints them after consulting the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the High Court, and the governor. And the retirement age for the High Court judge is 62, unlike a Supreme Court judge where it is 65. Coming to the functions of the High Court, number one, to issue the writs to safeguard the fundamental rights and other legal rights of the citizens, supervising the working of the subordinate courts and framing the rules for their proper functioning, the interpretation of the provisions of the Constitution. So these are all the important functions of the High Court. There are also, in addition to Supreme Court and High Court, as a part of the judiciary, there are subordinate courts. The civil courts, deciding on the civil matters like money issues, property issues, contracts, etc. And also criminal courts, so they decide on the matters pertaining to any crime, murder, theft, robbery, etc. And appeals against these judgments, they can be admitted by the High Court. Similarly, in the Supreme Court, it can be admitted against the High Court judgments. There is also what is a judicial body called the local adalat, a very important body. It's an alternative judicial institution that is less time consuming and less expensive. So the state and the district level officers, they organize the lok adalats from time to time at places convenient to the people, and they take up the cases from the parties which mutually agree to settle them amicably. So the judgment, it is as good as the judgment given by the civil courts, and no appeal can be made against such a judgment in the higher court. So this saves the time and money. So friends, with this, okay, in simple words, I have explained about the provisions of the Constitution.